So this is a tree in my yard. It's very nice to hear all the bees, isn't it? There's something really neat about that, isn't it? I'll sit down and talk at you. Hey, my energy peeps. It is Wednesday. It is a beautiful day out here. We're still talking about productivity. And I'm with my bees. I think you guys got to hear some of that. That was really nice to hear that again, right? So if you guys recall, Cody had said, hey, talk to us a little bit about being an empath and productivity. So we had covered a little bit about that on the basics. And today I really wanted to cover productivity at work. As an empath, as a highly sensitive person, energy sensitive, whatever you want to call it, whatever term feels good for you today. So it's broken to me in about 4 different things, and I really don't know which comes first, the chicken or the egg. So I think it's all interrelated, and I think they're all important. So I'm just going to get started and just talk about the things that I think affect, the first thing you want to consider in terms of who you are and how you feel and what stimulates you is the kind of places that you want to be in. And so your environment is really important. So are you the kind of person that, wants open space? You're okay in a cubicle. You're fine if you worked in an open space environment. I have a friend of mine who is she's a really strong intuitive, really strong energy sensitive, and where she works, they have an open seating format, and which means that it's kind of like a first come first serve basis. She works at a bigger company, and so which is something else we'll talk about, but so it's like your space could change at any given day, based on who got there first or whatever. So that's something to consider, right? Working in an office or working at home. A lot of energy sensitives might be salespeople. They're intuitive, so they're good at sales, but then they're also able to work out of their car and be away from people and kind of be in a flow, be out, and kind of keep that energy moving. So you'll see that a lot of times too. So environment, I think, being productive at work is really important. And with that is whether or not you need your own space, and I really think that's key. So often now everything is kind of modular, or if you're collaborating, particularly if you work at a bigger organization where you may spend your day working on this part of the campus or that part of the campus or whatever, but being clear on where you work best. So if it doesn't bother you that you could work at any random place possible and you're like, hey man, no big deal, then that's amazing. That's wonderful. If, like me, I like to have my space. I like to have my corner, and I really don't want everybody touching that, and that's kind of like my little area, and then I happen to do work near that, and etc. So so for me, I'm a little different. I wouldn't want random space all the time. I feel like I wouldn't be grounded enough or be able to feel comfortable enough. So that's something to look at. Another thing to look at is your volume threshold. So this would obviously also impact where you would be working. But you got to think about how many people that you want to interact with on a daily basis. What can you handle without it blowing you away, right? So, it's one thing to be a forest ranger, and it's another thing to work a ticket booth at a major concert, right? So I'm just saying, in terms of volume of people that you're going to be dealing with, both in terms of enclosed space as well as quantity of, man, that's a lot of stuff going on. So really thinking about whether or not you want to interact with, be in the energy of a ton of people. So, and that could impact where you live. I work with a lot of folks who are city folk, And so they're around a ton of people all the time, and a lot of them take like mass transportation or whatever. So they're in a kind of like a huge energy vortex already. So they may or may not have a choice at this moment to make a shift in that. So then you want to find other ways that you can minimize those things that really try to amp you up, right? So it's really about knowing yourself and knowing where you perform best. This is I'm gonna flip flop in what my notes say and where my head was at. But along with this and knowing yourself is knowing what days or times of the day you work best. So, for example, let's say that you're an energy. Let's say you're a highly charged empath, right? And it's Sunday, so you're already kind of feeling people get a little anxious in your neighborhood or whatever. You're feeling kind of the group consciousness, your little mini group consciousness here of the anxiety that, Monday is going to bring or whatever. You're already feeling it a little bit too for whatever reason, right? So you might want to try to, structure your work on Mondays to be a little lighter. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you're really humping it, right? And then on Friday, you might want to ease it yourself into the weekend as well. It's different for everybody, but, you can choose kind of how you do your work performance and to rearrange your schedule if you have the opportunity to be able to do that. I want you to consider that and try to pad yourself a little bit with that. So, with that comes like, hey, and of course I'm thinking more that you have a job and that you might or might not be in an office scenario or whatever, but you have some sick days or what have you. You might want to consider using some of those sick days in what we call in our family mental health days, and just make sure you plan for that, or vacation days for the same reason. Sometimes it's just better that you just need to unwind for a minute. It just is what it is. There's no invest in yourself and protect yourself and care for yourself and allow yourself that time. It doesn't mean that you need to express that or explain that to anyone else or why you need to take a mental health day. You don't need to call it that. You can tell your family that, but to the office, you have a cold or you're sick or what have you, whatever you need to do to take off that day, that's within your rules and regulations or what have you. But that's part of it too, is really kind of looking at what you're offered and maximizing that to your benefit. You're given sick days and vacation days for a reason. Use them. So even if you don't have a place to go on vacation, you sure could use some mental health days. Think of that. Don't just let them sit there. So I want you to consider all of that. You're trying to create balance. And ultimately, it all comes down to what is your vibe and how do you want to live your life? Do you want to live your life in a high energy, which has a lot of excitement? You meet a ton of people, you know what I mean? You're like in the middle of it, right? There's some real awesomeness to that. Is that something that you want to experience for the next 6 years to, forever? Or was that just this time right now, and then you really need to be looking for something different for yourself where you feel optimized, where you feel like you can optimize yourself? So I want you to consider that, these gifts in working and being productive at work also have a lot of advantages. You're able to maybe forecast some things before other people actually see them occurring. You're able to stay out of certain problems. You're able to enter into certain opportunities based on what you're feeling, and work with certain people and don't work with others if you have that option. So all of these are powerful things that add to your productivity too on the positive side. I know we've spent time on how do you kind of manage things, but I guess for me, I really wanted to spend time on that because that's what I work with most people on, is they're trying to figure out how do they manage some of this. So I just want to give you guys, some ideas too. I hope that's helpful. And I still want to talk a little bit about productivity at home and recharging, and that'll be an upcoming video. In the meantime, if you like this, please subscribe or thumbs up or whatever you do down there. And then I'll see you here shortly next time. And until then, be well.